Exactly. How on earth were they able to build those pyramids, and we are not today?
Without the aid of computers.
It's the mystery is still not being solved.
One of the mysteries of the world, absolutely.
Everything is vibration, and it is told that they moved those huge blocks, granite blocks, which exactly were not from the Nile area, and they were transported there, or they were beamed down there by Scotty, and they were transported by use of sound waves, vibration again. It is in different sources that they used a flute-like thing, a magic wand-like thing to use. They used on these huge blocks, megatons of blocks.
I mean, is that the case of transporting them from one place to another? But what about how do they put them on top of each other?
That's transportation again.
The same.
There is
way of doing it.
You can see two videos on YouTube. One is cymatics. Please find it and put the link to it.
Yeah.
Cymatics is the visual representation of sound on physical particles. It is so vast beyond any imagination if you're not into the subject.
Okay.
Second is ping pong bowls levitated by sound alone. If you can do that...
I've seen this.
Yes, if you can do that on that minuscule level, the former principal said, as above, so below, right?
Yep.
If you can do that on that really tiny level, the ping pong bowl with small amount, very, 5 centimeters, 2 inches, 3 inches wide speaker levitates this object, you can use something bigger to levitate something bigger.
Well, I'll tell you what, moving those stones must have been some hell of a vibration.
Then, vibration again. Let me explain how Hermetic Principle puts it, and we go over it.
Yep.
Anything that is perceivable, either an idea, an energy, a radiation, or matter, for that matter, has to exist out of nothingness. And that breaking of nothingness, remember I told you some 2 weeks ago why I thought consciousness was a distortion of a wave that ripples in nothingness, creating the very fabric of existence.
Yeah.
It is more complex than is written here. Just like this, vibration is the distortion of a wave that ripples in nothingness. The sign goes up and down. I'm showing it, but you can't see it. But we will put it as an image on the video so they can understand. A sine wave goes up and down. It's like a pendulum swing.
Yep.
Has to go one way, the other. Okay? This is correspondence, again, manifesting itself. Anything that goes one direction and the exact opposite vibrates.
Obviously, there has to be an opposite.
Yes.
There has to be an opposite.
The vibration creates everything, and we are there to distinguish nothingness from that small distortion of the wave.
Okay.
This is basically it, if we're talking about vibration being the principle of, or elemental thing in everything.
I have to say, I couldn't have put that better myself. I couldn't have put that better anyway.
I had a lot of time meditated on this one.
Okay.
I'm prepared.
The principle of polarity is the next one. Heat and cold, although opposites, are really the same thing. The differences consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer and see if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. There is no such thing as absolute heat or absolute cold. The two terms, heat and cold, simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing, and that the same thing, which manifests as heat and cold, is merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration.
Well, I have a lot of things to say about this, but anything you want to add to it, or anything? What do you understand from all this, Mr. Diver?
I think that going back on the vibration, whatever the Egyptians did at the time, it's fascinating because those pyramids are still vibrating, and unfortunately, because of those vibrations, are falling apart.
It's not only that, they just photographed these huge megalithic structures, the pyramids, so to speak, are now beaming up pure energies into the sky.
They've recently discovered this?
Yeah, recently, just these months, the photonic belt is around us now, and we're going to go through that for 2,000 years. For the next 2,000 years, it's going to be pure light. That's why we will not be able to have dark nights anymore. It's going to increase. Just small information.
Well, the people from up the northern part of the world, there's a little place the very north of Norway, where they have, I think in the winter, only
Aurora Borealis. It's not the winter.
No, they
It's-
only have 2 or 3 hours of daylight, so that's going to be good news for them. Just thought I'd throw that one in. Okay, the principle of rhythm. The principle of rhythm is everything flows out and in. Everything has its
What was
tides.
the previous principle?
That was the principle of polarity.
Polarity.
Yeah.
When I said vibration and correspondence, it includes two sides, right? There has to be a center,
Yep.
and there has to be two sides of a thing
Either side of the center, yeah.
for the vibration to occur.
Yes, yeah.
That's called polarity. Because once you take it from the outside, you look at it from the outside and say, there's a certain amount of distance this vibration holds. It's called the frequency, right?
Yep.
Hertz. And if you look at it from the center point, the singularity point, from inside out, it is polarity. It's the same thing,
Yep.
but from different vantage points.
Sure. Yes.
I agree.
Okay, let's move on then. As I was saying about the principle of rhythm, everything flows in and out, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall, the pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left, as we were saying. Rhythm compensates.
Everything repeats itself.
Yes.
And
Life repeats itself.
this repetition is a rhythm. And very funnily, English has some words that have no vowels in it.
Yep.
Rhythm is the longest, and it really requires no vowels because rhythm is not vowel. It's the consonant.
Full
It's
of
the
consonants,
constants of the time.
Can we maybe apply this principle to the oceans and the seas?
Of course,
Yeah.
everything moves in directions and everything has a rhythm because that's the flow of life. That's in one point, right?
The curriculum vitae.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what did they say in the previous principles? There is motion in
Motion,
everything.
yeah.
And this motion has polarity, ups and downs.
Yeah.
This is exactly it. The rhythm is the up and down of it. When it's down, it's not bad. It's not up anymore. That's why heat and cold can be compared to as the absence of heat
Yes,
or
yeah,
what is
yeah.
darkness, what is light. As in Albert Einstein's
The absence of light, the absence of darkness, and yeah.
how can
Sure,
you
yeah.
describe what evil is without presence of good? How can you describe what good is without the presence of evil? Because that polarity gives you the amount of degrees that you can use to evaluate anything.
Okay.
That is my explanation of that.
Sure.
principle.
That
This rhythm thing and the pendulum, unfortunately, can also lead to disasters. The rhythm gets too heavy, the action gets too heavy, especially as you mentioned before at sea, and you have a natural disaster.
Sure, it does happen. Yeah, it happens. And I suppose we can.
If you resist to it, if you go with the
cannot-
flow,
you cannot resist. it.
sometimes you can't, can you? No, sometimes there are
At
situations
sea,
you can't.
there's nothing no human or machine can resist. It's such a big force.
tsunami,
Mm-hmm.
taking out continents.
Absolute. Which can actually link into the next principle, which is the principle of cause and effect. This principle embodies the fact that there is a cause for every effect and an effect from every cause. It explains that everything happens according to law, that nothing ever merely happens, that there is no such thing as chance. So are we saying here coincidence doesn't exist?
Can we?
I can say it doesn't exist. I
You
think.
don't believe in coincidence, right? So
no.
we're on the same page here.
Yeah, no.
I don't have to persuade you.
Really, it's a topic on its own. But I think
Each of them are.
coincidence has to be redefined somehow.
I think it's something. It's a word we use when we really can't explain why
Exactly.
something's happened. Oh, that was coincidence. Coincidence happens. It's just a word.
It was going to happen anyway.
Serendipity is
Serendipity. Yeah, absolutely.
is what you call it. Otherwise, if you understand the meaning of it, if you don't see further than your own feet, you may not be able to realize. If we don't see millions of years ahead, we may not be able to realize why an earthquake happened and killed those millions of people. And as I always say, humans have to die for humanity to thrive. Everything is
And that
in
is no
itself.
coincidence. I mean, it's
exactly.
just-
It's exact, yeah, it's
it
absolutely.
needs to be redefined. There's too many factors that are used when something happens, and the outcome's coincidence. But really, if you look to the background of it, it was meant to happen.
It was happening. It was heading that way. Yeah, it was going. Yeah, sure. Okay. The next principle, in fact, this is the final. The final principle. It's the principle of gender. Gender is everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. On the physical plane, the principle manifests as sex. On the higher planes, it takes higher forms. The philosophy states the obvious, but only when you read it, the obvious becomes obvious. Logical and maybe principles we are aware of, but we never quite understand.
Chicken and egg.
Chicken and the egg.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If there was no gender, there would be no world. There would be no human.
Yeah.
There would be no.
Not only humans, but our understanding of growth, it has two ways. One is separation, the other is procreation. And separation, procreation in itself is a contradictory subject which we are a part of. We come from a cell. We are conspired, actually.
We are part of a conspiracy.
Exactly. As we've been exposed to this language stuff last week, the Chiron last stuff.
Yes, yeah.
We are a part of a conspiracy that manifests itself on every level. Sex, gender, in itself. If you give the sperm and the egg 1 and 0, they represent themselves, and our thoughts are binary. Our world is binary. And that is polarity, and that is vibration, everything
Brings
else.
in the principles, doesn't it?
It's a duality principle. That duality is represented in different forms, and gender is just one of them, but has another way. Gender, just like causality, everything happens for a reason, and everything that happens is the reason of another thing.
Do you know,
it's not the end.
I think after this discussion, we should think about taking the word coincidence out of the dictionary.
It's incidents, right?
It's how shall I say? It's an easy way of describing things. That's what it's used so
when
often.
you don't understand how to describe something, it coincidence is a great
Just
word,
let's
isn't it?
break it down.
Yeah.
What is an incidence?
It's a cool
Event
something that's
happening.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an event on its own.
Yes. Coincidence.
Yes.
An incidence, an event that gives way to another, that assists another, which you did not foresee.
Cause and effect.
Yes, exactly. So coincidence, one thing that happens gives the result of something that you did not expect or that you did not foresee. Unexplainable
Good.
things. That's why we call them coincidence.
Okay, so
It's not
now,
chance.
So now we've actually defined the word coincidence. I think it can stay in the dictionary.
Please let the dictionaries know that we have defined it.
Well, I think after that, I'm going to have a coffee. We'll obviously continue with more of this next time. I can thank you again. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And Diver, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. I think you'll probably need more than coffee for this.
Great to have your input. Yeah, I'm
I
driving.
personally, I think
I'm
you'll
driving.
need something stiffer than that, and opt to take a taxi.
Right, we're off to the bar. We're back next time.